Hello, thank you for joining me. My name is Dr. Sharon Scambria and I'm here today to talk to you about marketing, collecting and analysing marketing information. We're working from Farrell and Hartline, 2017, Chapter 3, and we just share the screen here. We'll get going. Okay, here we go. So Farrell and Hartline, Chapter 3, collecting and analysing marketing information. All right, so in this chapter, we look at conducting a situational analysis that comprises an analysis of the internal environment, the customer environment, as well as the external environment. And we look at this process of collecting marketing data and information. Here's some issues to think about when you're conducting a situation analysis on the internal environment. We want to look at the organisational's objectives, strategy, and performance data. Within the organisation, we want to look at availability of resources, and we want to consider what is the organisational structure and culture. Beyond the internal organisation environment, we want to look at the customer environment. Who are the current customers and who are the potential customers? How do the customers use our products? When and where do customers select our products? And why do potential customers choose to purchase or not purchase our products? So the third component of a situation analysis, according to Farrell and Hartline, is an analysis of the external environment. And some might be familiar with the PEST or the PESTEL framework here, and if so, this is where you'd put it to work. But according to Farrell and Hartline, the external environment begins with a competitor analysis, and then you move on to looking at economic growth and stability, the political trends in the macro environment, as well as legal and regulatory issues. And let's not forget about technological innovations. Now, conducting a situation analysis is not enough. It's not a solution in itself. So, of course, our analysis needs to be combined with what makes sense and what yields useful results in this planning process. So we need to recognize that data in itself is not necessarily useful. So we need to translate data, raw data, into useful information. And this is part of what we're presenting in our formal business plan, our formal marketing plan, for example. So the data is the numbers and the facts, whereas the information is those numbers and facts translated into some sort of useful presentation. Now, when we're conducting this situation analysis, what we need to keep in mind is that it costs time and money to do an analysis. So we have to make sure that the benefits of conducting the analysis are greater than what it's costing us to undertake the analysis. So there is value in the analysis, and the analytical process is where we can find that value. But of course, the value of the analysis that we're putting forward is going to depend on the quality of the marketing plan at the end of the day. So the cost of acquiring data is easily determined, but the benefit of improved decision-making based on the useful information that we present is actually much harder to track. And it's not to be underestimated, this challenge of conducting a situation analysis. So in part of the process of conducting a quality analysis is that our information and our data needs to be organised, our processes need to be systemised, and it's not a one-off thing, it's an ongoing effort. So it's necessary to simultaneously track internal environments and changes in that internal environments, the same as we track and monitor what's going on in the customer environment and what's going on in the external environment. Okay, so this is a graphic representation of what we've just talked about. So in the center of this circle, we've got the internal organization, and then surrounding that internal organization, we've got the customer environment, where we're asking ourselves, who is our customer? Where and when is our customer using our product? What for and why? Then in the broader macro environment, we're looking at the competition, but we're also looking at what's going on in the macro political environment, what's going on in the economic macro environment, as well as what's going on in the sociocultural, and let's not forget technology. So let's look at now the internal environment in a little bit more detail. Analysing the internal environment involves a review of what are the organisation's marketing objectives, what is the strategy that they are looking to achieve, and what is the evidence with regards to organisational performance. So we want to look at the consistency of their marketing goals with their corporate goals. We want to look at the reasons behind how that organisation is performing. We want to look at their resources and the current state of the organisational resources and the measures required to use those resources that are available in the most effective manner. When we're looking at the internal environment, we also want to consider organisational culture and structure. So in terms of structure, there are positive and negative aspects that will be identifiable, and this will be these aspects can be considered in both the current and the anticipated organisational structure, because organisations are dynamic. Then with regards to organisational culture, what's the state of the internal politics and the management challenges that might affect our marketing activities? Okay, so let's move on to analysing the customer environment in a little bit more detail now. So analysing the customer environment involves looking at identifying the current and potential customers. It looks at identifying the needs of the current and potential customers. It looks at how does the competition of the organisation meet those customers' needs? And how are these customer needs changing? Can we anticipate what our product needs to deliver in terms of customer needs down track? So we use a 5W model for this. We look at who, what, when, where, and why. Okay, now looking at the external environment, first thing we're going to do is a competitor analysis. Who's offering what and how in terms of who are we competing against? Now, in order to identify our competitors, we of course have to know which industry we're operating in here. And it's sometimes useful to look at a broad industry definition and who are the competitors there, and then narrow industry definition and who are the competitors there. So the narrow industry definition will identify direct competition, whereas a broad industry definition will identify indirect competition. From there, we move into the macro environment and we look at various macro factors such as politics, economics, sociocultural issues, and technology. Okay, so this slide here is identifying different types of competitors. So we can compete on brand, we can compete on product, we can compete generically where very different products might solve the same problem, for example, and we can compete on budget, so where financial resources are competing for the same dollar. In the competitive analysis, there's various stages. We can identify who the current and potential competitors are. We can look at their key characteristics, such as their organizational size and their strategy and who they are targeting. We can assess their strengths and weaknesses. We can look at their marketing capabilities, and we can estimate their likely responses to whatever strategies are implemented. Okay, so in the economic macro environment, we're looking for growth and stability. Economic change is inevitable, and this has a profound impact on marketing strategy. But general economic conditions that we can look to give us an idea of where the economy is at, we can look at inflation, we can look at unemployment, interest rates, taxes, tariffs, and changes in the business cycle. With regards to consumer discretionary spending or consumer income, disposable income, we can look at willingness to spend and consumer confidence, as well as their spending patterns. Now, because we have a shift in the US economy from a predominantly tangible society to a services-oriented economy, there is recognition of the importance of innovation and creativity as human assets, and these aren't necessarily recorded as gross domestic product statistics. They're not necessarily included. So yeah, it's just an issue to consider. In the political realm, let's put politics and legalities and regulations together. We're looking at what are the views of elected officials and what does this mean in terms of our marketing strategy or recommended marketing strategy. So legislative actions might be, some legislation might be more welcomed than others by the public. And we see an example of this with regards to, well, Beryl and Hartline flag anti-tobacco trends and the status of illegal immigration. But I'm going to add in there, how about we talk about systematic racism and discriminatory laws that are very much to do with the people business, and that's what marketing is. Marketing is the people business. Okay, so whatever the laws are, marketing strategists need to abide by these laws. It's just that sometimes the laws are a bit vague, and so we have to dig. In terms of technology, let's consider front stage technology, such as smartphones and GPS technology, and then backstage technology that's not necessarily noticeable to customers. And here we're talking about, for example, RFID technology. Okay, sociocultural factors influence causes and changes, social and cultural factors cause changes in the beliefs and norms in a society. And we have an aging population throughout the world, including in America. So this is a demographic sociocultural trend. And there's also shifting trends with regards to what customers value. Okay, I've just mentioned that there's an aging population globally as well as in the US. There's also an increasing number of single parent households. In terms of lifestyle trends, we've got an increasing number of Americans that are postponing retirement for various reasons, including that they can't afford to. And there's definitely an increasing staycation trend, especially in the COVID context that we find ourselves in. There is with regards to the shifting value of consumers, there is definitely increasing distrust of the government. Okay, so this graph is showing us the trend in the aging population. So this is a forecast to 2050, where we see the relative growth in the number of older Americans increasing from 2012 to 2050. Corporate affairs, we're talking about a collection of strategic activities that are aimed at marketing the firm and the ideals of the stakeholders related to that firm. So key corporate affairs strategic activities include corporate communications, government relations, investor relations, corporate philanthropy, and corporate sustainability. When we're collecting marketing data and information, we look to both primary and secondary information sources. Secondary information sources are gathered for some other purpose at some other time, and these include internal data sources, government sources such as census data, book and periodical sources, as well as commercial data sources. And ideally, we'll start with secondary data, but sometimes that's not enough, and sometimes we have to go and do our own research, and this is referred to as primary data collection. So here we might be doing customer surveys, for example. We might be doing focus groups or direct observations. We need to recognise that whatever form of data collection that we are doing, that it's going to be incomplete and possibly even inaccurate. And so we need to recognise those shortfalls and interpret accordingly. There may well be a severe information overload, and so we need to manage and systemise our management of incoming information. Doing research is time-consuming and expensive, so we need to allow for the time and money that it takes, or recognise the constraints of finances and time concerns. Quite often when we're doing a situation analysis, we're going to have to deal with a vast amount of data and information, and this is why information management systems are very important in the process. So there you go, that's chapter 3. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.